Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. The Young and the Restless spoilers. Claire and Nate's sizzling turn. Kyle and Audra's feud has heartbreaking results. The Young and the Restless, Y&R, spoilers reveal that Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller, and Audra Charles, Zuleika Silver, conflict could have some unintended consequences. Audra has fallen harder for Nate Hastings, seen Dominic, than she'd like to admit, so she'd be crushed if she pushed him into the arms of another woman. Nevertheless, that may be exactly what Audra's about to do. Nate seems worried about how bad Audra's feud with Kyle could get, so Audra could sink to levels that are a real turnoff. Meanwhile, we've got Claire Newman, Haley Aaron, who's overcome her own scheming tendencies and improved her life with the help of the Newman family's love. Claire gets how the corporate world operates and thinks she can handle Kyle being a little manipulative for the sake of business, but trouble could be brewing. There may come a point when Kyle's devious behavior becomes too much for Claire to tolerate. Claire has risen above all the Jordan, Colleen Zenk drama, so she doesn't approve of devious plots anymore. If Kyle crosses the line somehow, Claire may drift away from him and towards someone else who's been trying to rise above his own past mistakes. Of course, we're talking about Nate, who just might become another love interest option for Claire. Back when Claire was still plotting against the Newmans, Y&R seemingly had some scenes that served as Claire and Nate's chemistry test. Now the show's bringing that pairing possibility back around. Based on Nate and Claire's intriguing interaction in the October 1 episode, there's a chance that they might end up getting together sooner or later. It'd be interesting to see things take a sizzling turn for Claire and Nate down the road. Perhaps Nate and Claire could commiserate over Audra and Kyle's mutual desire to win at any cost. It's easy to imagine Claire and Nate bonding as Kyle and Audra distract themselves with all their feuding. Nate and Claire could develop some feelings for each other eventually, so that could at least lead to a kiss and some confusion about what they really want. Like Audra, Kyle could face some heartbreak as well if he pushes Claire towards someone else, namely Nate. Will Kyle and Audra's hostility put the romances they've been working toward in jeopardy? The Young and the Restless spoilers say some twists and turns are still to come in Genoa City, so we'll bring you updates on any feud-related news and more predictions on all the romantic developments ahead. In The Young and the Restless, the tension in Genoa City has been heating up, and two unexpected pairings are about to send shockwaves through town. With Kyle and Audra's feud simmering dangerously and Claire and Nate's chemistry becoming impossible to ignore, the stage is set for both passion and heartbreak to unfold in ways no one saw coming. Claire and Nate's sizzling turn. Claire has always prided herself on maintaining professionalism. But when Nate Hastings walked into her life, everything changed. Their initial connection seemed innocent enough. Work-related, formal, and respectful, but underneath the surface, sparks were flying. Claire's icy exterior began to melt as Nate's charm and confidence drew her in, bit by bit. What started as casual conversations in the Newman Enterprises offices slowly evolved into late-night meetings, where the air between them crackled with unspoken desire. Nate had been trying to distance himself from his complicated relationship with Elena, but Claire was impossible to resist. Their professional interactions quickly blurred into personal ones, and it wasn't long before Nate found himself gravitating toward Claire for more than just business advice. She was intelligent, ambitious, and refreshingly different from anyone he had ever been with before. As they began spending more time together, it became clear that their connection went beyond mere attraction. There was a genuine chemistry between them, one that neither could deny any longer. One fateful evening, after a particularly intense meeting about a new project, Nate and Claire found themselves alone in the Newman boardroom. The tension was palpable, and with one look, they knew what was coming. Nate closed the distance between them, and without a word, he kissed her, passionately and without hesitation. Claire was taken aback at first, but she quickly melted into his embrace, giving into the desire she had tried so hard to suppress. As their kiss deepened, the weight of their burgeoning relationship began to sink in. They knew this would complicate things, especially with Audra and Kyle's drama swirling around them, but neither of them seemed willing to stop. Kyle and Audra's feud escalates. Meanwhile, across town, things between Kyle and Audra were growing increasingly volatile. Their business partnership had always been fraught with tension, but now it was boiling over into something much darker. Audra's cutthroat ambition was clashing with Kyle's growing desperation. Ever since his separation from Summer, Kyle had been on a downward spiral, and working with Audra had only exacerbated his struggles. Audra had never been one to back down from a fight, and when Kyle began questioning her decisions in their latest venture, it pushed her over the edge. The two had been butting heads for weeks, but this time the argument was different. It was personal. Kyle accused Audra of manipulating situations to her advantage and using him as a pawn in her quest for power. Audra, never one to hold back, fired back with accusations of her own, claiming Kyle's recent failures were due to his inability to focus on business rather than his crumbling personal life. Their feud reached its peak during a heated confrontation at Society. As onlookers watched in shock, Kyle and Audra's argument spilled out into the public eye. Words were exchanged that could never be taken back, and their relationship, both business and personal, was irrevocably damaged. But what neither of them realized at the time was that their feud was about to have far more heartbreaking consequences than either could have imagined. A feud with heartbreaking results. Amid the chaos of Kyle and Audra's increasingly bitter war, an unexpected tragedy struck. Harrison, Kyle's beloved son, had always been a source of light in his life, especially during his turbulent times. But in the wake of his feud with Audra, Kyle had been distracted, too consumed by his anger and frustration to pay attention to the things that mattered most. One afternoon, while Kyle was wrapped up in yet another argument with Audra about their business dealings, Harrison was involved in a terrible accident. The little boy had wandered off unsupervised at the Abbott mansion, where he had been playing near the garden. A seemingly harmless situation turned disastrous when Harrison slipped and fell, suffering a severe injury. The news of Harrison's accident sent shockwaves through Geno City. Kyle was beside himself with guilt and anguish. He blamed himself for not being there when his son needed him the most, and his feud with Audra seemed so meaningless in the face of such a heartbreaking event. As Harrison was rushed to the hospital, fighting for his life, Kyle's world came crashing down. Audra, too, was shaken by the tragedy. She had never intended for things to escalate to this point. While she and Kyle had been at each other's throats, an innocent child had been caught in the crossfire. Audra was consumed by guilt, realizing that her relentless pursuit of power had contributed to the distraction that led to Harrison's accident. Claire and Nate faced fallout. As Kyle and Audra grappled with the aftermath of Harrison's accident, Claire and Nate's burgeoning romance was also put to the test. News of their passionate affair began to circulate through Geno City, and it wasn't long before the whispers reached the wrong ears. Elena, still reeling from her complicated history with Nate, felt betrayed by his sudden involvement with Claire. She confronted him, accusing him of moving on too quickly and using Claire to fill the void she had left behind. But Nate, while torn, stood his ground. His feelings for Claire were real, and he wasn't about to let anyone dictate his personal life. However, their newfound relationship wasn't without its challenges. Claire was also facing pressure from the Newman family, who questioned her intentions with Nate. Victor, in particular, was suspicious of the timing of their relationship and wondered if Claire was using Nate to gain a foothold in the Newman empire. Despite the obstacles in their path, Claire and Nate remained determined to make their relationship work. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were willing to fight for what they had. However, as the fallout from Kyle and Audra's feud continued to ripple through Geno City, Claire and Nate's future together remained uncertain. The aftermath. In the wake of Harrison's accident, Kyle was forced to reevaluate everything: his feud with Audra, his relationship with Summer, and his priorities as a father all came into sharp focus. As he sat by Harrison's bedside, praying for his son's recovery, Kyle vowed to make amends and find a way to move forward. Whether that meant reconciling with Summer or mending his broken bond with Audra, one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. Meanwhile, Claire and Nate faced the reality of their situation. Their sizzling chemistry had brought them together, but the complications of their personal and professional lives threatened to tear them apart. Would they be able to withstand the storm brewing in Geno City, or would they, too, be caught in the heartbreaking fallout of Kyle and Audra's feud? Only time would tell as the drama continued to unfold on The Young and the Restless.